Delaine Achermann didn't think twice when on July 24, 2009, her husband of 56 years, Peter Achermann, got into his car to run a few errands. It's been 13 and a half years, and Peter's whereabouts is something that she and her 8 living children, along with other loved ones, think about daily. Peter Achermann was born on May 21st, 1927, in Neuhausen, Switzerland, and from a young age he wanted to be a farmer. When Peter was 16 years old, he began working in various farms around Switzerland, and by the age of 19, he had completed his time in the military and moved to France. In December of 1948, when Peter was 21, he decided to leave the political unrest around him and boarded the SS Washington to America. His time in America began in New York and eventually landed him in Osakis, Minnesota, where he met a 16-year-old woman named Delaine Voigt. It was love at first sight, and the two married on April 13, 1953. The couple went on to have 11 children, and in the 1960s, they settled on a 540-acre farm in Leader, a small unincorporated town in Minnesota. Peter's life was chronicled in a 329-page memoir written by his niece, Becky, called The Journey of a Lifetime. By all accounts, he was a remarkable man who led a full and interesting life, one which cannot adequately be captured in a short episode meant to cover his disappearance. Peter was regimented. He would usually go into town, run errands, come home, and take an afternoon nap or play cards with his family. On July 24, 2009, 82-year-old Peter went to town around lunchtime to pick up Delaine's medication, buy some milk and bananas, and to pay the caterer for his granddaughter's wedding, which was the next day, a wedding that he was also set to speak at. Delaine was busy making Amish bread when he left and expected him to arrive home at around 2 or 3 like he usually did. She wasn't too concerned at first when he didn't return as expected. After a few hours, however, she became worried. Peter would usually call when he was going to be late. The Cass County Sheriff's Department was called, and the family searched that entire night and into the morning for Peter. CCTV footage was pulled from Ernie's grocery store in Staples, where he had picked up groceries, which showed that Peter seemed just fine at the time. The day after Peter disappeared, a friend of one of his sons found his blue 1995 Caprice wagon abandoned in a mud hole at the end of a minimum maintenance road 10 miles from his Leader home. Inside the car were the groceries and Delaine's medication he had purchased the day before. The driver's side window was also rolled down. His keys, walking cane, wallet, and his green card were missing. Peter only had about $30 cash on him at the time. When the Staples police and the Cass County sheriffs arrived, the area was not treated as a crime scene, as they believed that Peter had wandered off into the woods. The car was touched by the officers as well as others, and no fingerprints were taken. The terrain where the car was found is swampy and heavily wooded. Peter was in good health for a man his age, but he needed a cane to get around, so it would have been difficult for him to traverse that area. That evening, a helicopter equipped with an infrared camera was dispatched to the area to search for heat signatures, but none were found. In the following days and weeks, search parties of up to 200 people, the Minnesota National Guard, Minnesota DNR, Minnesota State Patrol, and independent search dog teams combed the area, and no sign of Peter has ever been found. After 2 weeks of looking for Peter, the official search was called off. The family believes that harm came to Peter and that his car was dumped where it was found. They also say that if Peter would have gotten stuck in the mud, he would have aggressively tried to get it out, yet there was no mud on the car. There have been questions as to why his window was open. Perhaps he stopped to help someone and they hurt him. Peter had a kind and helpful nature. He would also pick up hitchhikers on occasion. Other theories are that due to his advanced age, he became disoriented and wandered off into the woods. On July 24th, 2013, Peter was declared legally deceased for legal reasons, and on August 11th, 2018, the family held a memorial service for him.
Well, it's been more than 9 years since an elderly Leader, Minnesota man disappeared. Peter Achermann has never been found, but his family felt he deserved a proper funeral and wanted to celebrate his life. Our Anthony Scott has more.
On July 24th, 2009, Peter Achermann left his family farm to run some errands, and he never returned. His car was found the next day wedged in a mud puddle, and the police had no answers. 9 years later, his family is paying tribute to the great man he was.
It's 9 years, and it's time. I'm already in my late 80s, and I don't want to go without finishing my job.
A funeral service was held Saturday morning for Peter, followed by a celebration of life at his family's farm. Even after 9 years, so many friends and family came to celebrate his life, which says a lot about his character.
He touched everybody. Sometimes you wouldn't agree with him, but he still treated you fair, and he was a real good man.
Peter was a Swiss immigrant who came to America and built something that can be passed down for generations to come.
That's why he came from Europe, so he could farm. And he found this little heaven here in north of Leader, and it was our home. Yeah, he built it into our home.
My brother owns the farm now, my older brother Franz. He was buying it from Dad before Dad disappeared, so we all kind of wanted to keep it in the family. We got a big family, so this will always be home. Everybody's got a place.
Despite the family holding a funeral for Peter last weekend, there is still hope that he is out there somewhere, and they just want answers as to what happened to him 9 years ago.
Just want to know what happened. Most of all, we want him home. We had this funeral today, and it's a good thing, but it would have been nice to have him somewhere where we could put him.
He just was a good man, and I wish whoever knows where he's at tells us.
Bizarre. That's the only word to describe what happened to Peter Achermann on July 24th, 2009. The family was able to have some closure on Saturday, but they are still left with so many unanswered questions. Reporting from Leader, Anthony Scott, Lakeland News.
From just listening to some of the stories today from the Achermann family, it becomes pretty clear how full of life Peter was. At only 21 years old, he immigrated from Switzerland to the United States by himself. He spoke 5 languages, loved to travel, and even wrote a book. And his family is still desperately searching for answers to his disappearance. Delaine Achermann doesn't hesitate when describing the type of man her husband was.
My husband was very gentle, a good man, a righteous man, honest man.
Delaine's husband, Peter, disappeared after making a quick trip to the grocery store. His car was found off of County Road 32, just outside of Staples. What's it like not having him?
Oh, terrible.
This year would have been the Achermann's 60th wedding anniversary. Delaine said she met Peter when she was just 16.
I told my mother, that's the man I'm going to marry. And she said, just a minute now. And eventually I just knew.
For Delaine, the passing of time does not make Peter's disappearance any easier to bear.
I find it quite difficult. And naturally you do find it difficult.
Law enforcement officers say that even years after a disappearance, new resources can help lead them in the right direction.
Just having it fresh in the community so people are thinking about it and getting people talking sometimes leads us to new tips.
And for the Achermann family, life does go on, but there is no closure.
It wouldn't be so bad yet if we knew what happened to him, but we don't. This is our biggest problem due to his age. We expected one of those days would come, but where and why and what, we don't know.
Yep. Delaine says it helps to surround herself with family. She also tries to stay busy, but the family is still pleading for any information that could explain what happened to Peter Achermann.
As stated earlier, Peter and Delaine had 11 children. 8 are still living. Along with their children, they also had 13 foster children and 23 grandchildren. His wife, Delaine, is now 90 years old, and she, along with their children, desperately want to know what happened to their beloved husband, father, and grandfather. Peter, who would be 95 years old now, wrote the following in his memoir, The Journey of a Lifetime. Quite often, I entertain thoughts about dying. Now that I am old and worn out, I hope to experience a peaceful death at home. My hope is that in dying, I will be able to have my family around me, and that for my loved ones, it will be a positive experience. I would also like to plan my funeral without spending a lot of money. My hope is that the main feelings or beliefs of all should be of thankfulness for the good years, forgiveness of past weaknesses, and the knowledge of eternal life. If anyone has any information, no matter how small, please call the Cass County Sheriff's Office at 800-450-2677. You can also send tips to Crime Stoppers of Minnesota by calling 800-222-8477 or go online to crimestoppersmn.org. A reward of up to $20,000 is still posted for any information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the people responsible for his disappearance, if that disappearance is determined to be the result of foul play.